Good day, everybody. We are on February 13th, and we're gonna check our worm trap, and then I think I'm going to transfer my worms castings into some buckets because they're kind of drying out, and I don't want them to dry right out. Let's grab our worm trap. Oh, there's some worms down below. Not going to get real serious about picking out all the worms this time because we're going to sift the castings as it goes into the buckets. So we're going to just check the worm trap, see what we got. So there's a worm. There's a baby worm down there too. Some more than one. Yep, there's baby worms in the mix here. Let's go down into there. So, yeah, there's a good mix of baby worms and whatever the bigger worms got transferred in through the castings. There's a worm. There's a worm. There's a worm. Just checking for worms. And these worms that I'm seeing in here are a fair bit bigger than just wisps. So that's pretty good. So seeing as this stuff's so there's a worm. This stuff's so crumbly, I'm going to just take a wad of it and put it in the sifter. Try not to make as big a mess as I usually do. I usually make a pretty big mess. That's life. There's a worm. See, they're getting to be a pretty good size. This is all out of castings. So I don't know how many times I've gone through these castings and taken the worms out. Worm. And I'm I'm still getting worms out of them. And some of them are pretty big. And I might have too much in my sifter, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. If I see a worm, I'm going to take it out. So there's a cocoon right beside that worm. But it looks to be a spent cocoon. Yeah, got too much in here. But it's going. So, update on where some of my people are commenting from. I've got people from the Netherlands. I've got Africa, believe it or not. Kind of cool. So, keep the comments coming about where you're from. There's some worms. So this stuff's all been through the screen at least once or twice. A lot of it I double screened it when I put it in here, so I'm just gonna work my way through. See what I find for worms. This is getting, I would say, to be around the 2-month time period of the age of some of these castings. I had a little bucket I was trying out to do really fine castings. Didn't work worth a crap. So it's now dried out because it got just set aside. Worm. There's a worm. So this is how many worms come out of your castings, guys. Multiple times I've pulled out probably anywhere 30 to 50 worms. Different stages of my cast. So it's definitely worth revisiting and getting them out if you're starting a worm farm that you need the worms. I mean, when I first started my worm farm, I started with 250 worms. So I'd say it's worth it. And, you know, we bought those first worms, 250 worms for, yeah, I believe it was $49 Canadian. And they came, and I soon learned they were a mixed worm. They were not a... So I've spent a lot of time, the guy's bin, the big bin, is still probably a mixed bin. Although the reds seem to be much more prevalent than the blues. I think the blues are slowly working their way out. And yeah, that's okay. So out of that, I have different times hand-picked out what I deem to be red wigglers. And like 100% red wigglers, no, like, you know, hand-picked out 100 worms and started a breeder bin and did stuff like that. So that's to get a pure stock thing. Quite a few worms in the worm trap, actually, guys. There's a lot of little ones in there, and these worm traps do work. They're pretty cool. They are pretty cool. So I'm just skimming through. There's a worm. To see if I can find the worms. There's a worm. And like they're all of these worms are way past wisps. I haven't checked this worm trap. There's 2 worms. I have not checked this worm trap for going on probably 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, I guess. And yeah, it's there's a worm. One up there, fella. And I'm not saying that some of them aren't going through the screen yet. Anything's possible. What was I saying? So, being 5 weeks since my last check, some of these worms that I may have missed last time are getting to the full juvenile stage, right? So they're a nice size. That's easy to see. I'm thinking at this stage we may be done hatching, but I've said that so many times in the past about my casting. It's like, oh, we're going to be done hatching. We weren't. A little quicker than sorting through it all, doing it this way. So I'm thinking that on this bunch, I always kind of over guess things, but I'm thinking that this could be the last time I go through the castings after I put them into storage. For spring. For use in the spring. Worm. Like that's a pretty good sized juvenile. And you know, I could get really, really anal and technical about this and try to get every worm out. I don't think it's a big deal if one or two worms goes and lives in the castings until spring. And then we make our worm tea. They go swimming, and I don't. If they drown, I guess they might drown. I don't know. 24-hour period where they get put into water and bubbled around, so they probably won't make that. But meanwhile, they keep the castings kind of activated. It's a good size juvenile. The reason I want to get the worms out is because, you know what, kind of need them. They're, this time of year we can't get more worms into Canada because we're in winter time and the worm farms won't ship them. So we need what we can get. And price-wise, worms are expensive. Worms are not cheap. Not up here, they're not. I see guys advertising in the U.S. that, well, worms are like $55 for a pound. Up here, I don't think you'd touch a pound for under $100. 75 anyway. So it's an economics thing, I guess. Waste not, want not. When you got them, why wouldn't you use them? And figure out how to save the ones you have instead of just letting them pass through your system. I mean, there's a time I want them to go out on the ground. We're not there yet. I need them in the I need them in my worm farm. I need them in my system so that I can collect more castings and get more product going through and work on my system to use my scraps and stuff. In order to do the things at my farm I want to do, I'm going to need more worm castings. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, rather than throw my worms away, I want to keep them. So we probably took another, between what was in the trap, all the little guys, and what was in here, probably took out another 30, maybe 40. Just to give you an idea, some of the things I tried when I first started making my breeder bin. I made my breeder bin with 100 worms. The first one. Second one has like 250 in them. And you could go more. And I probably should go bigger numbers and get more breeding, more cocoons faster. I'm still not, like, it works. I'm not saying it won't work or doesn't work. I'm not convinced the extra labor gets you extra amount of worms to justify the amount that you're doing. So there's my worm castings, guys. These are what I would classify as well-matured worm castings now. The worms are pretty much out of it. I think we're to the point where the cocoons are hatched. I'm not saying they're ever all going to be hatched. I'm going to pause you for a minute. Show you how I'm going to set up my storage containers. Pause. Okay, we're back. Just going to show you how I'm setting up my storage containers and TK litter containers to hold my castings. So I'm just going to take a 1/4 inch drill and I'm just going to go turn it up. Oops. Don't worry about the plastic stuff. I'm going to be taking the whole sheet down and shaking it off. Okay, so, and I'm going to leave this corner in case I want to rinse this bucket out. I'll have one corner that I can at least pour liquid out of, and it doesn't make a huge mess. So, like this. Let me give you a different angle of shot here. I guess we're going to try to not make a mess. It's a pretty big ask on my part. I make a mess. Oh, there's a worm. I always watch while I'm doing this, just in case I pull up another worm or two. You know, if they're there, I don't want them. Like I said, we are getting down to the point where most of the worms I think are out, but you're never going to get them all. When I look into the plastic, I don't see a bunch of baby wisps. Like I just don't. If they're there, they usually kind of collect on the plastic and stick to the plastic, and they're not. Okay, so that's my newest castings in there. And we're going to do the original bunch. Like, these ones are getting to be, I would say this is my mature castings bunch. They are, it's time for them to, you know, a little dry on the top, but then once you get like half an inch down, the moisture's fine. What do we got? Oh, here's still a worm. So there you go. I have this bunch of castings has been sifted and gone through, put it in the wrong bin, and gone through 5, 6 times, and I'm still finding worms. More worms. 3 anyway. Oh, I see another one in there. 4. 5. So you're never done finding worms and castings even when you call them mature. 6. Yeah. Just going to smudge that down into the bucket, break it up so that it goes through the sifter. We're going to sift this stuff too. That is some pretty darn nice worm castings, guys. Okay, let's commence to sifting. Sit down the road for now. Have our handy dandy bucket. Having a quick look for worms. Don't really see it. But it just goes to show you Last time I thought I had pretty much all the worms out of that blue bucket, and another few this time, and it's been a while. Oh, there's another one. 7. Not worried about the chunkies. I'm just trying to get worms out. Because I do believe this, well, there might be one more time, will be the last time I go through them. For the worms. So the reason I'm putting them into these used kitty litter buckets, for one, they stack nice. And with the holes drilled in them like that and the lids closed, you have to have some air get into them, right? But with the holes drilled into them and the lids closed, I think they're going to stay more moist. And this batch has stayed really well. The ones that were in the gray container were getting too dry. There's too much surface area. And another worm, 8. 8 out of this bunch, which I said was finished last time. Now, that's pretty small potatoes, right? But it is what it is. Like I said, might as well grab them when we're doing something. And 9. Are we going to get to 10? Pretty good chance. There's still lots of worm castings left. Oh, there's 10 right there. What's our next goal? 15? 20? You know, if I get 20 out of this bucket and 30 out of the last bucket, that's half of 100. I started my whole worm farm with 250 worms. So that goes to show you, if you give things time, how you can grow. There's 11. And 12. When I see them, I might as well pick them out, right? They don't have to go through the bouncy bounce of the sifter if I take them out. Now 13. We're getting a fair few worms out of here. And I said there wouldn't be very many. The good part is these ones are pretty much, there's no wisps. They're all juveniles. Because this is an older batch. 14. $15, 16, 17, 17. Too funny. Well, I'd say we're going to make our 20 pretty easy. $19. And 20. So we made our 20. Let's make a new goal for 30. There's 21. $22.
You're welcome. Do you like it?
23.
Yeah.
23 already, hey? Pretty wild.
Well, yeah, here too, he was always into his Lego. He does better when
23.
he has a kid that he has to follow the directions. He can just randomly do it himself. Yeah, I did the same thing here. Does he still have his
24. I think we're going to make the 30.
Yeah.
Kind of surprised me, but $25. 6. 27. 27. $28.
28.
30. But I bet you if I went digging in there, I'd find 30. But should I go digging in there? Probably not. That's some fine looking stuff. That's what we're doing this for, is to get this stuff, and then we make worm tea, and we spray it out on our land to get the biology back. Checking the edges. See if there's any little guys up in the stuck castings. There's a few castings stuck on the side. I'm not going to worry about it. So 28 more worms. So there's more than probably 50 worms in that little bucket. So, you know, that's almost 25% of what I started my worm farm with. You can do a lot with a few worms if you just give them the time. So it's worth it. Now, let's see. I don't know if it's gonna all fit in here. The last one made it a little more than half full. I don't think it's gonna fit. So if it's not gonna fit, and I have to start a new bucket anyway, I'd rather keep these castings separate. So we're just gonna make another bucket. So one to be able to pour liquid out of. And you know what? I'm just not worried about plastic in there because I don't know how to explain this, but I'm going to be putting it in a net when in a net bag when I do the compost tea. So that part of it's going to be filtered out there again, screened out and filtered out there again when it goes into the worm tea brew. So it's not going to come out of that bag. It's not going to cause me problems with my nozzles. Oh, that was a mess. See, I told you I was good at messes. I told you I was good at messes. But the good part is messes clean up. So I'm not going to lose any sleep over a few pieces of plastic in my castings to I mean, if I was selling this stuff, maybe I'd care, because you don't want to be selling plastic with your worm castings. Probably doesn't look right. I'm not selling it. It's going to be going into my own use. And it's going to never leave my farm. And if I get the odd little... And then when I take the stuff out of the bag afterwards, when it's done brewing, that's going to be going into my plant beds and so on and so forth. So like a little chunk of plastic that big in your plant bed, or if you do see it and it bothers you, you got way more OCD than me. And I'm kind of OCD on a lot of things, but not that. So, yeah, there's no way this would have fit in that bucket. Okay. So the yellow one is the old castings. I think the most mature castings, the yellow lidded one. The white lidded one is the least mature castings. So people might be wondering, okay, so how much worm tea is that going to make? That will make, those two buckets there alone are going to make approximately 1,000 gallons of worm tea. Now you say, oh, that's not a big deal. Okay, it's not. In the grand scheme of things, but worm tea is a funny thing. You take worm tea and you dilute that by 10, and so you go 10 to 1 with that for water. So if I got 1,000 gallons of worm tea, I'm going to have 11,000 gallons of sprayable product on my ground. Now to put that into perspective, people, I haven't done it yet, but I've got a 1,000 gallon sprayer. It's set up with really big broadcast nozzles to get it to go through and to spread it out easily. So it'll cover, when I get it set up, it's going to cover about 100-foot swath of area. So that sprayer, that 1,000 gallon sprayer, should put out about 25, possibly 30 gallons, depending on my speed of how fast I go, of product per acre. So 300 gallons does 10 acres if you're at 30 gallons. So that sprayer should do 35 gallons, and I can fill that sprayer 11 times. That means I can treat basically a half section of land, 320 acres of land, once, from corner to corner, with worm tea. And I'm not done yet. I've got more. I've got to sift my guy's bin, I've got 2 more bins that are ready to sift. I'm going to have at least another one of them buckets full by spring, maybe 2. So all of a sudden, I only have on my land, I only have 240 acres of land that I rent out to my renter, and I farm 1,100 acres, or I control 1,100 acres with all the land that I have and rent. So I'm going to be able to cover approximately half of my acreage just with what's in those buckets to get some worm tea made and broadcast out. And I'm not done yet. The worm, my worm farm's getting bigger. My capacity's getting more. My goal would be to do it at least a couple, maybe 3 times a year. But once the crops get so canopied up, you're not going back through to track through to pack it down. You got to do it when it's young. So we're going to do it right after seeding, and then right after he sprays his crop. And he is not organic, and we are not organic. He is going to spray his crop, and I want to go back out and reintroduce more biology after he sprays, because the biology is going to take a hit when he sprays. There's no 2 ways about it. But we're just trying to do what we can do and see if we can improve it in our system the way it works. And that's a quick explanation of how things go. This stuff all takes time. We're going to record it, we're going to play with it, and we're going to show you guys as we go. So if you like what we're doing here, like, subscribe, share, comment, send us comments. I try to answer all comments. If I miss somebody, I'm sorry. I don't get that many comments that I should miss any, and usually I get notifications when I got them. Hit the notification button if you want to be notified when we make more videos. She's February 13th of 2024, and that was a playing and moving the worm castings and storing the worm castings, and showed you how I do that. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's beautiful here.